Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brian Collada with Train by Tex. We had an interesting case study I'd like to go over with you guys. I had a 2005 BMW X5 with an E53 chassis that had come in. The customer concern was that the check engine light was on and there were no drivability concerns. The vehicle ran perfect. So I'm going to perform a quick test with my Autologic Assist Plus. And a quick test is simply a code scan of all DTCs from all of the modules. The only code that I found was a 0945E secondary air mass flow sensor. Now, what is a secondary mass airflow sensor? I've never heard that before. So let's do some homework before we begin by starting off researching in service information on the DTC that was set. I find here that this says secondary air system air mass flow sensor. Okay, so now that I see secondary air, I'm more focused on the air injection system. That makes more sense to me. The monitor strategy says that the air mass flow sensor is disconnected or the signal is stuck. The secondary parameter here, it says that the secondary air must be operational, the engine speed must be less than 4,500, and the air mass flow sensor will read less than 400 milligrams per stroke. I don't typically translate airflow in that type of measurement, but basically that's saying that there should be some type of airflow. Pulling up the description of operation, it basically explains what the secondary air system is, which most of you are probably aware of. Simply put, that they are injecting air into the exhaust stream to decrease the amount of time it takes for that catalyst to warm up. And they're doing that by pumping basically oxygen down the exhaust, and then also enriching the fuel mixture to light the cat much sooner. The portion of this article that I highlighted was interesting. It says that the air volume blown into the secondary air system is measured by the means of a secondary hot film air mass sensor. Okay, that sensor is right here. It's a small 3-wire sensor, fairly simple circuit. There is an inlet filter here, and then the line that comes off of the pump to the mass air. So we're going to activate that secondary air pump. I already have my Autologic out, so let's go ahead and see if there is some commands within the tool to see if I can turn that pump on. Okay, so I'm going to click here on component activation, which this is under the DME, and then I'm going to click on miscellaneous, and then in here is a list of all of the components that you can activate, and at the bottom here on the left I can turn that secondary air pump on and off. You can hear that pump come on. So that proves to me that that air pump is, at least at this point, functional. So the air pump turns on, it sounds healthy. This proves at this time that that circuit that controls the air pump is functional, and that the air pump is more than likely attempting to push air. According to the service info, we know the vehicle measures the air entering the secondary air system via a secondary mass airflow. So let's see what that mass airflow is reporting when the pump is actuated. A wiring diagram was retrieved to identify which wire going to the mass airflow is the signal return. We're going to sample the signal to the secondary mass airflow to the DME while commanding that secondary air pump on. Here is an edited wiring diagram to illustrate how I have my scope connected here. I'm using a Verus Edge, and I'm just simply using one channel in yellow, and then I have that that lead grounded, and then I'm simply sampling the signal return coming from that secondary air mass flow sensor eventually to the DME, the engine control module. And here is a video of me doing that. I'm going to go back into my AutoLogic, command that pump on, and then walk over to my Verus where you will see that I have, 0 voltage. I have the Verus Edge in a graphing multimeter, which is basically a slower version of a scope. The benefit of that is that you can view a much more time on the screen to see if there's any changes from when it was off to when it was on. And you can see this was just simply a flat line. There was no change in that signal when the air pump was turned on. Okay, there is no change in the voltage on the secondary mass airflow signal while commanding the pump on. That mass airflow has 3 basic circuits that are fed to it. 1, battery voltage, 2, ground, and 3, the signal return. The battery plus and ground circuits were tested and proven good. However, there was no output from that mass airflow sensor. Simply put, the B plus and the ground I load tested, and they proved out functional. BMW does not publish a signal voltage specification for that mass airflow sensor signal wire during the operation of the pump, but the voltage has to increase considerably when the secondary air pump operates. You would expect that voltage to change. Of course, no change in the mass airflow voltage is not what one would expect on a known good vehicle. Are we done? What if air is not moving? If the air injection pump valve is stuck closed, air cannot move, therefore flow cannot be obtained, therefore the mass airflow sensor may not report. What if the air pump motor is spinning, but the impeller that it's attached to is not? Maybe the impeller is cracked. Maybe it's frozen. What if the air ports within the cylinder head are blocked? Again, a blockage is going to create no flow, therefore the mass airflow sensor would not respond. A quick way to prove that the secondary air system is functional is to simply review the oxygen sensor behavior while commanding the air pump on. Typically, on most vehicles, you will see the oxygen sensors report a very low voltage, a lean condition, and almost immediately after commanding that air pump on, if the system is functional. Typically, you would see your upstream oxygen sensor respond almost immediately after you turn that pump on, and then later on the downstream would respond as well, depending on the catalyst efficiency. Scan data was reviewed while commanding the air pump on. There was very minimal to no change in the oxygen sensor behavior while the air pump was turned on. This is proof that the system is not capable of pumping additional oxygen down the exhaust. Okay, I thought I had a bad mass airflow sensor. Now what? I thought I had a bad mass airflow sensor, but it looks like there's nothing flowing down the exhaust. So, this is a good reason why additional testing is important. Maybe there's a possibility that that air injection valve is stuck closed. If that valve is stuck closed, there will be no airflow, resulting in no change in the secondary air mass signal, and also no response to the oxygen sensors. So let's check that. Here's a photo of that secondary air injection valve. It's simply bolted to the cylinder head right here, and then there is a line going to the discharge of the secondary air pump. I'm going to loosen the bolts on that air injection valve to allow air volume to escape a leak while commanding the air pump on. And the whole purpose of that is to create a leak to see if I have airflow flowing out of that air injection valve. At the same time, I'm going to review the scope to see if this leak that I just created has made any change to the output of the mass airflow sensor. If I have added this leak to the system, and that is the cause of the problem of the vehicle, my mass airflow should now report correctly. And here is a video of me doing exactly that. You will see me basically turn the mass airflow sensor on, or I'm sorry, turn the air pump on, and then wiggle the valve. Okay, you can hear air rushing past the sealing surface of the valve. So that proves that to me that this valve is capable of opening. The air pump obviously is capable of pumping, and there still is no flow down the exhaust. So again, we have proven that there is airflow coming out of the air injection valve. This quick test proves multiple things. One, there is no restriction in the air inlet filter to the pump. Two, the air pump is capable of pumping. And three, the air injection valve is capable of opening under the air pump pressure. While reviewing the scope with the air pump running and that air injection valve loose with air flowing through it, I noticed there was no change to the mass airflow signal wire voltage. I have already tested the B+ and ground, so this confirms I have a bad mass airflow sensor. Okay, but why didn't my oxygen sensors report a change with the air pump running? If the air pump if airflow is present at the head, could there possibly be a restriction in the head? So I completely removed the air injection valve from the cylinder head. I start the vehicle, and I'm expecting to see exhaust flow out of the head. At first, there was almost nothing coming out of that cylinder head. Very, very, very minimal flow out of exhaust. If you would imagine, say you remove an oxygen sensor from a exhaust pipe. This is basically the same size hole in the exhaust. The exhaust should be very loud. It should have high volume. It should be very, very loud. So here's a video of me doing exactly that. I have the valve completely off. I'm going to move the plastic air line out of the way and then start the vehicle. You'll notice the exhaust sound is there, but not nearly as loud as what one would expect. That should be screaming. That's a 3/4 of an inch hole in the exhaust stream. That thing should be very, very loud. I did not capture this on camera, but I did snap the throttle a few times. After 3 or 4 attempts, a pop was heard, and a coworker of mine tells me that a big mess of black carbon had blown out of the head, and now the exhaust leak is now 100 times louder. It sounds exactly like you'd expect an exhaust to sound, as if you had an oxygen sensor removed from a pipe. I have a video here of me snapping the throttle after the pop was heard and after all of that junk came out of the head, and you'll notice that the exhaust is louder. camera microphone doesn't nearly do it justice, but I promise you the exhaust sound is extremely different from when that pop was heard, before and after. So it seems I've successfully found out why I had no response from the oxygen sensors with that air pump on, and that would be due to that restriction. And at the same time, the restriction has been eliminated. The air injection valve was reinstalled, and the air pump commanded on with my Autologic. Both oxygen sensors now report lean. Nice. The system is functional. So we talked to the customer. We called them. We explained what we had found. What we had found was that the fact that there is a mass airflow sensor problem, but there is also a restriction within the head. So we sold the mass airflow as well as additional time to relieve the blockage in the head. Now, after replacing the mass airflow and getting rid of the carbon within the head, that mass airflow reports when I command the air pump on. And also, the oxygen sensors now report lean. All is well, and the vehicle is fixed. I would like to thank each and every one of you for watching our videos. We love doing this kind of stuff. And that's all I got for you. So again, thanks for watching.